Y'all be doing foreplay. Y'all be warming up the mic. It's wet already. Stop making jokes.
All right, so it looks like Andrew Schulz and his giggling goons are involved in some controversy once again, because a couple months ago they had on these podcasters, ShxtsNGigs, who I'm not very familiar with, but I read their audience is mostly women and their podcast is pretty inoffensive. So going on Flagrant probably wasn't the best idea, which they definitely know now because they're getting a lot of backlash and actually had to apologize for laughing at something Schulz said during the show, which is pretty funny because they're getting more backlash for laughing at what he said than he's getting for actually saying it. And this podcast had happened 2 months ago and nobody really seemed to care at the time because, I mean, Schultz's fans, they know what he's like. They know he makes offensive jokes and he's not afraid to make fun of anybody. So when the podcast first came out, I don't think there's any real backlash because something like this on Flagrant isn't that surprising. You know, I think he would have gotten more shit for this if he had apologized. Like, his fans would have been more upset about that than what he said. So obviously he doubled down and he made fun of them for apologizing. Because also it seems like they kind of threw him under the bus here. I mean, I know he's the one that said it, but the only reason this clip is getting backlash 2 months after it happened is because of something they did, which I'll get to. But also during this, it seemed like they're fine with what Schulz is saying. Like, they're laughing along with it. It didn't seem like they had a problem. But now that they're getting some backlash, they said they're really in complete shock about it and they're in fight or flight mode. You know, they pulled a Chad Daniels and they said they just didn't know what to do. They couldn't believe what he was saying. But of course, during the podcast, it definitely didn't look like that.
See, a guy who's had a black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, like clean shape up. Glows up, bro.
Yeah, I like that.
Glows the fuck up.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this black girl complaining about shit all the fucking time. That's why they gotta shave their hair.
Nah, bro. White guys with black girlfriends,
they grow a beard
because
there's more cushion when they get slapped the fuck out of them. That's hilarious. I think the black girlfriend effect. It might be a protective instinct, bro.
You think?
Protective. Yeah. Do you guys have you ever had black girlfriends?
Yeah.
Have you ever had white girls?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. What's your favorite?
We love them all.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
We love them all.
Yeah.
That means white.
Yo, who gets
That means what?
Hey, let me do the U.S. translation.
Kendrick fans, get him!
Yeah, so they seemed fine with the jokes. You know, they didn't have much of a problem with that. But they did seem a little uncomfortable with the question that Schulz asked them at the end, like who they're into more. You know, it seemed like they didn't really want to answer that, which kind of gives away the answer, like Akash and Alex were saying. And this topic is why these guys are going through some controversy in the first place. Like, even before people found this Flagrant clip, they're already dealing with some backlash. And I believe it all started from this podcast, I'm pretty sure, where one of the guys made the mistake of saying there are no good-looking women in Atlanta.
In Atlanta, I've seen the least baddies so far.
Oh,
Thank God we ain't from here.
I'm a Texas girl. You ain't offending me now.
That's how you own it. There can be a skinny girl who wears the fuck out of being a skinny girl. And then you've got a thick ting who just owns the shit out of being a thick ting. It's bad is bad is bad.
That's a PR answer.
A PR answer.
They're all beautiful. If you have,
I'm not saying everyone's beautiful. I just told you Atlanta's clapped. I never said everyone's beautiful. I just said I'm not seeing any baddies here.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's what set people off, and then that made them want to dig for even more clips of them saying stuff like this, and that's how the Schulz clip came about. And they did find some other ones too, which just reinforced the fact that they were definitely laughing at Schultz's joke. You know, they definitely didn't find anything wrong with it.
She used to watch on a TV show, who was obviously black. She was like, oh, I wish I was her. I'm thinking, what?
Jesus Christ.
She kept on saying, oh, I wish I was black. I wish I was black. I'm thinking,
Jesus Christ.
What?
For starters, if you was black, you wouldn't be getting any black men. So I'm just saying.
That's such a bold statement to say.
I wish I was black.
I wish I was black. Like, yes.
What's going on in your life?
What? Do you know what I mean?
You're white, fam.
You're white.
You're
Just
winning, fam. To interrupt. What is it with? It sounds like I'm hating on black girls. I'm actually not. Even though I'll come back to it. I used to have such a stigma against black girls because they used to bully me. Anyway, moving on. I'll come back to it. Why do black girls want every type of guy to want to be only with black girls? So exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
if there's a white guy, especially if he's good looking, if there's a good looking white guy, if I can with a black girl, it's ratings
Ratings
galore.
galore.
It's ratings galore, fam. And if a black guy is dating a white girl, black girls are vexed. Black guys aren't vexed. Black girls are furious. Stealing our women, stealing our men, all this stuff.
Yeah, so these clips and the one from Flagrant, I believe were all being shared after their Atlanta comments. I think that was the start of it. You know, obviously something started it because I don't know why people just randomly be taking clips from a 2-month-old podcast to try to cancel them. Like, obviously they upset people. So I believe that's where it started. So then on their most recent podcast, they decided to address the Flagrant clip and apologize for it. And they only talked about that. You know, they didn't talk about how the controversy started or any of the other clips people dug up. Probably so they could mostly just put it onto Andrew and make it seem like that's the only reason they're getting canceled. Like Andrew said something, they just happened to be there and now they're getting backlash for it. But it really started because of them. But of course, they don't want to address that because then it would show that they were actually laughing at Schultz's joke and they didn't have a problem with it. And it just make things look worse. But since they just addressed the Flagrant clip, they could be like, you know, we didn't agree with that, obviously. We were in fight or flight mode. We were shocked. We didn't know what to do. He was totally out of line. So it's smart for them not to address how this all started, but then also them just focusing on the Flagrant clip and kind of throwing Andrew under the bus. Of course, he's going to respond to this and just make fun of them, which they kind of deserve.
And I want to just listen to their heartfelt apology.
Guys,
Girls.
right, before we get into today's episode, quick PSA, quick acknowledgement. So, if you know, you know. If you don't, that's fine. But we just wanted to address something that's happening at the minute. This past weekend, there's been a couple of clips going around from when we did a session on the Flagrant podcast while we were on our US tour. And yeah, there were a few jokes made that were incredibly inappropriate. One specifically pertaining to black women. And in the clip, Andrew was making a joke. I'm not even going to get into specifics. Frankly, like, racist joke. And we were laughing at it. And to give, first of all, before we get into like specifics or anything like that, obviously there's just literally no excuse.
Pause.
There is no excuse.
Agreed.
Pause. There's never an excuse for making jokes. Okay? That is a real statement said by a man. I just want that to be clear. There is never an excuse for making jokes with the boys. Go on. Let's take it serious. Look at how sad he is over on the left.
Real thing. Like, it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing. And
He is. Do you see how we should go back? We should go back because he's going through it right now. Look how he practiced this. I'm gonna pick my skin on my finger.
guys.
No. I need you to watch him. Look, he bite his bottom lip like, oh fuck, man.
There is no excuse.
Ooh.
And fight or flight is a real thing. Like, it is, yeah. Fight or flight is a real thing, and it's so not easy to say, but when you're in those situations, you look at it through a lens of like, bro, if it was me, I promise you, I'll stand up, I'll kick them cameras down, I would smack homeboy in the face, I would say this, I'll do that. But when you're in there, you're in shock.
You're in shock, and all you want to do is move on.
Yeah, bro,
Pause.
move on is the fuck.
I've been there. I know what that's like. When you're just having fun and laughing with the boys, and you're like, I just can't wait to move on from this. Don't you know that feeling when you experience the fight or flight and then you just laugh? Does that happen to you guys when your body is just being torn with the primal urge to either fight or flight, and instead you just go, ha ha ha? Do you guys ever have that feeling?
I feel like you're making an excuse for jokes.
I would never.
That sounds like what you're doing.
Hey, I would never excuse taking two things that have nothing to do with one another and then bring them together to make your friends laugh. I would never excuse that, Mark. Please continue.
Fucking word, bro. All you want to do is fucking move on. Just move on to the next thing. Just move on to the next thing.
move on.
And like, we had to say a few times, bro, just move on.
Just move
Just
on.
move
There's
on.
so many different topics. We were like, move on.
Yeah.
It's not even like about pity laughs or anything, but we just wanted to
Get out of that situation.
Get out of
literally
there.
that situation,
I know.
Keep the ball rolling, and we thought it was going to be more of like a bros chat,
Yeah,
but
just
it
like-
ended
Pause.
up being something that's
I thought it was going to be that too. I thought it was going to be one of those bros chats where you just say everything that's polite and proper. I did think.
You know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Once it's happened one time, you're like,
Pause.
fuck.
You know what's mad funny about this is that they had shit that they asked to take out the episode. You know what they didn't ask to take out?
Your racist slander.
Yeah, so those guys apologizing for it definitely is just making things worse, especially now that Andrew has talked about it. So they should have just tried to move on from it instead. Because obviously originally they didn't have a problem with what Schulz was saying, even up until a week ago, until they got canceled. They didn't have any problem with it. And Schulz knows that, so they had to expect a reaction like this from him. Like, there's no way he was going to apologize or try to walk things back. So they probably screwed up here by addressing it. You know, because also I'm sure most of their fans didn't really hear about this. And the fans that did, the fans that are actually upset, obviously this apology probably isn't going to mean much. You know, of course, in their comments, people are talking about how the apology wasn't good enough. You know, like somebody said, that apology was not genuine. I'm seeing the other clips of them making jokes and giggling at black women's expense on TikTok. They only apologized to save their views. And on top of that, why not post the apology everywhere? And another person said, that's an explanation, not an apology. And someone talked about the intro. They're like, that's one way to start an apology. And they said it was lazy and dismissive. So apologizing didn't seem to help and probably just made this story even bigger, like Schulz explains here. And luckily, he doesn't know the context. Like, he doesn't know how this all started, because if he did, he probably would have went harder on them. And Akash does bring it up, but he doesn't really go into detail.
I think what they're doing, what they don't realize is, because they're young in the game, and we've all went through this. It's like scary in the beginning. You really think you're going to be canceled. You're worried. I'm sure that they have, you know, people that they have to take care of, and they're like, uh-oh, what if I have to go back and I have to get a regular job? Is it all over? I completely have empathy for that. I get that. What they don't realize is, by apologizing, you're just amplifying it. Yeah. The people that are upset at this, the majority of them don't even listen to the podcast. A lot of them are probably resentful of your success. And they're like, why the fuck should these guys make all this money? And they're just like reacting to stupid videos on the internet and like telling stories.
They're just friends.
From college.
I'm just friends.
Yeah, I'm just friends. Why can't I have millions of dollars like they have? So but they don't realize that. They really think it's their community. Your community still loves you. Your community still knows you. Good. You are. They know you're joking. Go out.
So I agree with everything you said, but I think in their situation, I don't necessarily feel like they shouldn't apologize, because their fan base is different. You guys are comedians. You cultivated a fan base that are used to edgy jokes. So their fans tuned into the show and heard them talk or laugh about jokes in a way that they've never done before. And so their fans can be disappointed. So it's like, I don't think it's wrong to necessarily apologize in that aspect.
I would agree with you if the reaction to that episode happened immediately after it came out. There was no negative reaction after it came out. This is like a month, 2 months after the episode came out. And what, to me, that's indicative of somebody who just likes canceling or causing nonsense on the internet. They're trying to like bait people with, you know, the.
This is also on the back end of another thing about them. This supports the thing.
Oh.
People are already not liking them for whatever reason. And it's not because of them. It's because they're resentful, hateful, angry, bitter, jealous people who see these guys fucking killing it, being happy, having fun, all over. They're going across continents.
For doing nothing.
Yeah.
Podcasting, like, it looks like it's the easiest thing in the world. And honestly, it's really not that hard. Like,
yeah, and I'm surprised Schulz would admit that, but at least he's being honest. And he was right about them apologizing. You know, obviously that just made things worse, and they should have just tried to move on from it. You know, I'm sure people would have forgot about it in like a week. But instead, they're just kind of adding fuel to the fire here. And obviously, Schulz was going to respond to this. I don't know how they didn't see that coming. But at least for them, it seems like Schulz is a little sympathetic. You know, he understands they're under a lot of pressure, and they probably have never dealt with controversy like this. But let me know what you guys think about it down in the comments. And then make sure you check out my Patreon account. There's going to be a new video on there either today or tomorrow. And there's already over 90. You can hear about the time Tim Dillon humbled Whitney Cummings, or the beef he got into with Anthony Jeselnik, or the beef he got into with Airbnb. Or you can hear about some of the cringiest Joe Rogan Experience episodes, like the one with Amy Schumer. And I just talk a lot about Kill Tony drama over there. So if you want extra content, if you enjoyed the channel, make sure you check it out. It's definitely worth it. I'll put a link in the description.